Chapter 928, Number 1 of the Eternal World. Chapter 928, Number 1 of the Eternal World. Buzz. More sword shadows flew out. An additional 36 1-meter swords joined the existing 36 swords. 72 of them formed a new lavender lightsaber in the void. This was the second sword formation of Ninth Heaven Sword Formation. Kill? Jian Wushuang's eyes glinted with killing intent as the lavender lightsaber pierced the void. Xiao stood in the void with 5 huge fierce beasts standing behind him. He readied himself to make another killing move, but before he could do so, a lavender flowing light cut through the void without hindrance and directly pierced him. It was so fast. The flowing light was too fast. The second sword formation was much faster and more powerful than the first. Xiao had merely survived the first sword formation. However, the second sword formation was rumored to travel 10,000 miles in a second. This might be exaggerated, but it demonstrated how terrifyingly fast the second sword formation was. Xiao had no time to resist such a high-speed attack. Snap. The jade that Xiao had been always wearing shattered and produced a transparent halo that enveloped him entirely. The lavender flowing light hit the halo with great force, piercing it. The resulting strong wind sent a violent shock through Xiao body and he was pushed backward by several steps. Though Xiao was in a very pathetic state, he nevertheless survived the flowing light. Xiao face was as pale as a ghost. When he managed to regain his footing, he quickly retreated far into the void. Silence fell over the drill ground. Everyone was horrified to see what was happening. Xiao lost. He's really defeated this time. He almost got himself killed. Everyone outside of the restriction layer began fervently discussing the battle. Everyone could see that Xiao would not have survived Jian Wushuang's attack had the jade not cast such a strong barrier. I almost died? Xiao was similarly stunned and frightened. He had experienced several crises since he began cultivating, but never had he come so close to death. I would have died if not for my ancestor's jade. How is this even possible? He did not know that Jian Wushuang had a special talent. When Jian Wushuang was just a divine realm expert, he already possessed 7th level battle strength equivalent to that of an ordinary Dao master. When he entered the Eternal Realm, there was an even more unimaginable growth in his strength. A rank 1 Dao master was nothing to Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang's strength in the Everlasting Realm was one that defied the natural order. His second Ninth Heaven Sword formation could easily crush a rank 1 Dao master. There was a lot of exclamations coming from the audience. Did Xiao really lose? Xiao is an authentic Dao master who has opened up a Dao at the creation level. His strength is also at the top of rank 1 level. To think that an Eternal Realm expert defeated and almost killed a top Dao master. Jian Wushuang is the number 1 of the Eternal World. He's also the number 1 genius. Xiao is indeed a joke in front of him. The experts in the audience exclaimed with admiration. Everyone acknowledged Jian Wushuang's strength. Only Jian Wushuang deserved the title, number 1 of the Eternal World. Xiao totally out of Jian Wushuang's league. Xiao was upset to hear all the compliments for Jian Wushuang and yelled, "You bastard, how dare you use killing moves?" So what? Xiao replied coldly, speaking in place of Jian Wushuang. Xiao was the one who challenged my junior brother first. It was also he who suggested the fight for life. We all witnessed it. It's clear who really has the killing intent. The top experts looked over at Xiao with a hint of mockery in their eyes. No one was a fool. It was obvious that Xiao was the one who wanted to kill Jian Wushuang in the first place. Since it was he who challenged Jian Wushuang's life first, it would be his own fault even if Jian Wushuang had killed him during the fight. Xiao blushed, momentarily speechless. Xiao, having escaped to the edge of the drill ground, stared at Jian Wushuang in awe. He dared not fight Jian Wushuang anymore. After all, he only had 1 jade. With his jade broken, nothing could save him from another of Jian Wushuang's killing move. He had lost this battle. Jian Wushuang had defeated him so quickly and thoroughly in front of so many people. His confidence in his strength was completely crushed. Now he felt only fear. Your Highness. Xiao stood up from the audience to address Emperor Leng. This battle is over and it's obvious who the winner is. Your Highness, please announce the name of the Emperor's son-in-law. Everyone turned to Emperor Leng with complicated expressions. Jian Wushuang had prevailed in terms of wedding gifts and strength. He was the rightful winner according to the rules of the selection ceremony. He was rightfully Leng Rushuang's future husband. This ought to be the result of the contest. However, it was hard to say whether Emperor Leng would acknowledge this outcome. After all, everyone knew that the purpose of this selection ceremony was for the marriage alliance with the Xia clan. It was something that Emperor Leng had already promised the clan. This ceremony was just a process. The plan was to have Xia Meng excel in the selection ceremony and become the emperor's son-in-law in the kingdom Tang of the Eastern Land. That way Leng Rushuang would be forced to face the reality. It was beyond anyone's expectations that Jian Wushuang would come into play and even thoroughly defeat Xia Meng. This outcome was not within the plans of Emperor Leng and the Xia clan. The experts in the audience were curious about the choice Emperor Leng would make. Would she announce that Jian Wushuang would be the emperor's son-in-law in accordance with the results of the two contests of the selection ceremony? Or would she still choose Xia Meng without fearing the ridicule of so many people? The choice was up to her. Everybody waited for her to make her decision. Chapter 929, The Result. Chapter 929, The Result. Emperor Leng, I hope you make the right choice. Otherwise, Jian Wushuang stared at Emperor Leng as he stood on the drill ground. Mother. Leng Rushuang was also looking at Emperor Leng. I hope you can keep your promise. Your Highness, our agreement is dependent on the marriage alliance between the Xia clan and the kingdom Tang of the Eastern Land. The agreement between us is invalid without it. Xiao also stared at Emperor Leng as he secretly conveyed his message to her. Silence fell over the drill ground. Everyone waited for Emperor Leng to announce the final result. Who would be the princess husband? Would it be Jian Wushuang or Xia Meng? All eyes were on Emperor Leng, who was frowning as she sat on the throne at the center of the audience. Her expression was grave. To think that Jian Wushuang would be that skillful. Xia Meng is such a good-for-nothing to be defeated by an Eternal Realm expert. What a headache. She hesitated. Yet she promptly made her decision. Whoosh. Emperor Leng stood up and cast the audience a cold look. Only one person will be the emperor's son-in-law of the kingdom Tang of the Eastern Land. That is, Emperor Leng pointed to a direction. Xia Meng of the Xia clan, she said. Her voice echoed all over the drill ground. Everyone, including those on the drill ground and those seated in the audience, heard her. Everyone was surprised at this result. How can it be Xia Meng? What a joke. Does she think we're all blind? Jian Wushuang defeated Xia Meng in the two contests of the selection ceremony. Jian Wushuang is the winner and he should be the princess's husband. How could it be Xia Meng? Humph, Emperor Leng is so shameless. If she has decided that Xia Meng would be the princess's husband, why bother holding this selection ceremony? She's deceiving herself. Voices that carried anger and indignation came from all directions. There were tens of millions of audiences around the drill ground and everyone was a clear witness. They knew that Jian Wushuang was the rightful winner of this selection ceremony and could not believe that Xia Meng would be the emperor's son-in-law. The audiences could not calm down as they felt such indignance for Jian Wushuang. They could not be convinced. Many experts on the stand sighed with emotion. To think that Emperor Leng would dare to do this. She'd even sacrifice her reputation and that of the kingdom Tang of the Eastern Land for this marriage alliance. What's the benefit of her doing this? Is it so important to form the marriage alliance with the Xia clan? The experts were all confused. Some experts even frowned with dissatisfaction. So Emperor Leng has long decided that Xia Meng would be the princess's husband. Had I known this in advance, we wouldn't have gotten involved, Deep Sea Palace Master said angrily. Elder Deadwood also snorted. I heard that Emperor Leng would do anything to achieve her goal. I see that it's true. Both of them came from places beyond the territory of the kingdom Tang of the Eastern Land and possessed extremely powerful strength. Therefore they dared to speak up without fearing Emperor Leng's subsequent retaliation. Some other experts were also dissatisfied with Emperor Leng's decision but endured it after considering her title and strength. Of course there was another one who dared to speak out. That person was Xueling Tian. Emperor Leng, do you know what you're doing now? Xueling Tian asked with a sullen face. There was anger in his eyes. I surely know what I'm doing now. It's not your concern. The result of the selection ceremony is up to me and I'm entitled to choose the right person to be my daughter's husband. What does this have to do with you? Emperor Leng's voice was cold. Emperor Leng, Xueling Tian became even angrier but had to hold his temper. After all, he had to respect Emperor Leng's strength and title. Mother, You've broken your promise, Leng Rushuang said in a faint voice. She stood up from her seat and looked at Emperor Leng. Keep quiet. You're not speaking here. Emperor Leng turned around after reprimanding her daughter and said nothing more. Leng Rushuang's disappointment gradually turned into despair. Leng Rushuang had previously harbored expectations about her mother. However, everything had now shattered. The way she looked at Emperor Leng changed. It became colder and more distant. The drill ground turned tumultuous. Shock and terror seized the crowd. Xia Meng looked at Jian Wushuang in triumph and deliberately sent the latter a secret message while laughing. Jian Wushuang, what's the use of winning the contests? So what if you have better wedding gifts and strength? In the end, I'll be the emperor's son-in-law and Leng Rushuang will finally be my woman. As for you, you're just a countryman from a remote world with a little bit of luck. Yet you wish to compete with me? How ridiculous. Who are you to compete with me? Do you see the outcome now? Ah, aren't you angry and unsatisfied? But what can you do? It's useless. Emperor Leng has long decided that I'll be her son-in-law. You're just a contemptible scoundrel. Just enjoy your moment at the selection ceremony. When it's over, my clan will kill you immediately. That's your ultimate result. Haha. Xia Meng's voice continuously came into Jian Wushuang's ears. There was a hint of arrogance, madness, and triumph in his voice. These were the words from a winner to a loser. They were like silver needles that pierced Jian Wushuang's heart. Jian Wushuang kept his head down. Why? I've presented the best wedding gifts and talent. Why wouldn't she choose me? Jian Wushuang roared in his heart. He clasped his hands so hard that his fingers dug into his flesh and caused it to bleed. He gritted his teeth and trembled. I can't accept this outcome. I definitely can't accept this outcome. I won the selection ceremony but Emperor Leng chose Xia Meng. Just because Xia Meng is from the Xia clan. Emperor Leng, you're so cruel. Jian Wushuang roared, sending sound waves echoing in the air. He then raised his head as horrible killing intent erupted from his body. Chapter 930, I'd love to. Chapter 930, I'd love to. Rumble. Jian Wushuang's killing intent skyrocketed into the sky. The rumbustious drill ground gradually calmed down. The audience, tens of thousands of them, all turned to Jian Wushuang. They were also full of anger. Nobody could endure this unfairness. They were also curious what Jian Wushuang would do next. Jian Wushuang, do you have any doubts about my decision? Emperor Leng asked coldly. She did not regret the decision that she had made. The whole eternal world might despise her for what she had done after today, but she did not care. She cared only for success. The kingdom Tang of the eastern land would reach new heights once her plan with the national master succeeded. When that happened, no one in the entire eternal world would dare talk about her behind her back. Doubt? Jian Wushuang scoffed at Emperor Leng's question. Who dares to question your decision, Your Highness? But the protagonist of this selection ceremony, after all, is not Your Highness, but Leng Rushuang. Emperor Leng did not expect such words from Jiang Wushuang. Jian Wushuang ignored her and looked over at Leng Rushuang. Jian Wushuang, Leng Rushuang looked at him with a complicated expression. Leng Rushuang, Jian Wushuang called her name softly. Do you remember the tune you played for me in the nature residence the day we first met in the ancient world? Leng Rushuang did not answer. That tune is called the Icy Heart Melody. Jian Wushuang spoke slowly. The Icy Heart Melody is supposed to be cold, but my heart melted after hearing it. From that time on, there's a place in my heart for you. I never forgot you even after so many years have passed. In fact, I miss you more and more. Leng Rushuang, forget everything else. In the presence of so many people and so many powerful experts in the eternal world, I want to ask you. Will you marry me? There were tenderness and expectation in his eyes. He waited for Leng Rushuang's answer. The drill ground was silent as everyone awaited Leng Rushuang's answer. Would she agree? Leng Rushuang opened her mouth. Schwanger, Emperor Leng said in a warning tone as she glanced at her daughter. Unfortunately for her, Leng Rushuang had lost all affection for her the moment she announced Xia Meng as the emperor's son-in-law. She ignored her mother and continued speaking. Leng Rushuang stood on the stand, her beautiful eyes landing on Jian Wushuang. There was only Jian Wushuang in her eyes at that moment. She could not help recalling how she had met him for the first time in the ancient world. That day when Leng Wuxia had caused a strong enemy to attack Jian Wushuang, she offered to help him. She was surprised at his stubbornness when he turned her down. Later, Jian Wushuang made a desperate decision to abandon his doppelganger to survive. She appreciated his decisiveness. Jian Wushuang was not strong back then. He was just nobody in the ancient world. But he impressed her. Since then, Leng Wuxia had always been curious about him. Perhaps it was fate. Jian Wushuang possessed a special cultivation method that could neutralize the icy heart poison in her body. After that, they became involved with each other. She would never forget the time when Jian Wushuang helped her transform the icy heart poison in the ancient world. It looked like an ordinary detoxification process, but it was her first time experiencing something like that. She had never been in contact with a man due to her noble status. That was the first time that a man touched her hand and even poured his spiritual power into her body. For the first time she was in such close contact with a man. His breath and aura were carved deeply into her mind. She had always dreamed about him. Now he was proposing to her in front of so many people. Leng Wuxia smiled. She was born indifferent and there was almost never a smile on her face. But she was smiling now, unleashing a beauty that drew all eyes to her. Finally, she opened her mouth to speak. Her simple words that carried an unprecedented determination spread around the drill ground. I'd love to. She said the 3 words. Emperor Leng's expression instantly turned cold. Xiao and Xia Meng became sullen. Jian Wushuang smiled with relief. He was afraid that Leng Wuxia would reject him. If that was the case, he would leave without saying anything. Yet Leng Wuxia agreed. She was willing to marry him. I have heaven and earth as my witnesses. Jian Wushuang extended his hand to make an oath. His voice was as sonorous as thunder, echoing in the sky. Leng Wuxia is my woman from today onward. She will only marry me. I, Jian Wushuang, will marry her no matter what happens. Whoever dares to stop me, has to die. Jian Wushuang's voice, containing his killing intent and resolution, echoed throughout the place. Everyone on the drill ground could feel his determination. Swoosh. His aura skyrocketed to its peak. His sword essence surged at the same time, causing his blood mountain sword to shake. Everyone was stunned. Jian Wushuang then raised his sword and pointed the tip at Emperor Leng. Emperor Leng, will you stop me? Jian Wushuang asked. There was no respect in his tone. There was only coldness. This scene stunned everyone present. How dare you? You're the first person who dares talk to me like this in so many years. You deserve to die. Emperor Leng was also furious and killing intent flashed dangerously in her eyes. She flew swiftly in his direction. Oh no! Xueling Tian was shocked. Many experts on the stand were also shocked. Emperor Leng. She was going to personally attack Jian Wushuang. Chapter 931, I'll break your arm. Chapter 931, I'll break your arm. Emperor Leng swooped down from the stand with her killing intent fully unleashed. The experts were all shocked to see this. Emperor Leng, the emperor of the kingdom Tang of the eastern land, was going to make the attack herself. Emperor Leng. Jian Wushuang looked at Emperor Leng, who was aiming at him. There was no horror or fear in his eyes, only determination and resolution. He held his sword in hand. Suddenly, a token appeared in his other hand. He then crushed the token. Buzz. The destructive sword essence surged, a force capable of destroying everything in the world. The sword essence formed a barrier with an overwhelming power, blocking Emperor Leng from coming closer to Jian Wushuang. This is... Emperor Leng looked at the source of the sword essence with a frown. The top experts in the stand looked in the same direction too. Everyone could feel this terrifying sword essence. A giant spectral image suddenly appeared behind Jian Wushuang out of the blue. This spectral image held a sword too. The horrible sword essence was from this spectral image. This must be the 3rd level of sword essence left by Sunrise Sword Emperor. It's indeed powerful. Jian Wushuang clasped his hands, feeling the horrible sword essence. This sword essence came from the token that Xianyi had given him. The token contained 3 levels of sword essence, with each level being stronger than the one before it. Jian Wushuang had used 2 levels of sword essence. This was the 3rd and final one. If the previous 2 levels were just the casual creation of Sunrise Sword Emperor, then the 3rd contained all of his strength. Jian Wushuang also guided the sword essence. Emperor Leng. Jian Wushuang called out, "You don't deserve to be Leng Rushuang's mother. I might not be strong enough to kill you with this sword, but it's enough to break your arm." Jian Wushuang's voice was full of anger. There was killing intent in his eyes. As he moved his mind, the giant spectral image appeared behind him again. He swung his sword in an apparently casual manner. Everything seemed to be quiet and still. Emperor Leng's terror was reflected in her eyes. She felt the terrible destruction aura sweeping at her and she struggled to get away. Chi. The sword light ruthlessly cut through her arm, severing it from her body. Her severed limb flew out. Her blood gushed out in the void. Emperor Leng was shocked. Everyone on the drill ground was equally as shocked as they watched the severed arm falling into the pit in the drill ground. Half of her body was drenched with blood as she stood in the void. Just as Jian Wushuang said, Emperor Leng lost an arm. Emperor Leng, the emperor of the Kingdom Tang of the Eastern Land, had her arm cut off in front of tens of millions of people. It was the work of an Eternal Realm expert to boot. Even if Jian Wushuang had used a special skill, it was still a feat that would shock the entire Eternal world. "Jian Wushuang, I'm going to kill you." Emperor Leng screamed with anger and madness, her beautiful face contorted into a heinous expression. Her killing intent instantly skyrocketed. Jian Wushuang, an Eternal Realm expert, had cut off her arm in front of so many people. Jian Wushuang had been a nobody to her until now. This was an absolute shame for her. Kill him." The words echoed inside her head. Emperor Leng readied herself to attack again. Humph. Her scoff resounded like a thunderstorm in a clear sky. It also sounded like a drum being beat in everyone's ears. "That's enough, you lowly bitch." Out of nowhere, a giant figure in a gray coat appeared beside Jian Wushuang. This person was very handsome and had delicate and short black hair. There seemed to be lightning flashing in his dark pupils. He stood there with his hands behind him, exuding a superb temperament. His unique air impressed everyone on the drill ground and in the audience. The experts immediately recognized him. "Emperor Xiao. It's Emperor Xiao. Emperor Xiao is one of the 4 emperors. He's here. It's Emperor Xiao." The exclamations reverberated in the void. People were still grappling with shock. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. With the swooshing sound of the wind, 10 figures appeared behind Emperor Xiao one after another. The men were all dressed in black robes and emanated strong auras. They were obviously supreme experts at the level of Dao Masters. Among them was Di Jing, who was very familiar with Jian Wushuang. Are those men the 10 war gods under Emperor Xiao? Yes. The 4 emperors in the peak period of the Kingdom Tang of the Eastern Land had a group of loyal Dao Masters each. Emperor Xiao was ranked second then, and it was well known that he had 10 war gods. Each of these war gods was a true Dao Master with incredible strength. Later on, when Emperor Xiao broke off relations with Emperor Leng, a war between them broke out. Emperor Xiao was defeated and his 10 war gods were either wounded or killed. It's evident now that Emperor Xiao has once again collected 10 war gods over the years. Now that Emperor Xiao has come here in person and even brought his 10 war gods, things are becoming even more interesting. The top experts talked with emotion. The ordinary warriors were excited. They were shocked to hear Emperor Xiao call Emperor Leng a lowly bitch. Who would dare call her that? Then they recognized the 10 war gods behind Emperor Xiao and became enthusiastic. It was Emperor Xiao. Emperor Xiao, one of the 4 emperors in the peak period of the Kingdom Tang of the Eastern Land, was as noble as Emperor Leng. He was also a little stronger. Emperor Leng had defeated him many years ago. But he was now back with his 10 war gods. Chapter 932, Emperor Xiao and Emperor Leng. Chapter 932, Emperor Xiao and Emperor Leng. Emperor Xiao, Jian Wushuang greeted, looking at Emperor Xiao. "Well done, young man." Emperor Xiao looked at him appreciatively. It's unfortunate that Emperor Leng still chose Xiamang. Otherwise, Jian Wushuang felt dejected. Emperor Xiao also turned sullen. Having observed the selection ceremony, he was well aware of what Emperor Leng had done. She'd sacrifice her reputation and even that of the entire country just for the marriage alliance with the Xia clan. How could she be so disgraceful? "How dare you come here, Xiao?" Emperor Leng cried, casting her cold gaze on Emperor Xiao. "Humph. Xuan'er is also my daughter. You can't decide on her marriage alone." Emperor Xiao replied, You bitch, I've always known you to be a cruel person, but I never thought you'd go so far as not show any concern for our daughter. Since I'm here now, I won't let you make the decision for Schwanger. Ah, with your strength alone? Emperor Leng retorted sarcastically as she stared at Emperor Xiao. You lost our battle and ran out of the kingdom Tang with your followers. For many years you dared not show your face, yet you dare stop me today? Oh, with your 10 war gods? Of course not, Emperor Xiao answered coldly. I wouldn't have come today if I'm not fully prepared. Just then more than 10 figures dashed out of the void and arrived at the drill ground. There were 13 of them, each emanating strong, steadfast aura that instantly pegged them as Dao Masters. Their leader was a man dressed in purple that gave off a rather feral air. Many people on the stand recognized him at once. Bai Ming Hao. Isn't that Bai Ming Hao of the Bai Ming clan? There are also a few Dao Masters of that clan. The rest are also Dao Masters in the Eternal World. Did Emperor Xiao invite all of them here? Bai Ming clan was also a top clan in the Kingdom Tang of the Eastern Land and was almost as good as the Xia clan. There were also quite a few solitary Dao Masters with fairly good strength. Bai Ming clan? Emperor Leng's voice was icy cold. How audacious of you, Bai Ming Hao. Bai Ming Hao sneered but said nothing. It looks like you're here to avenge yourself, Emperor Leng said coldly while looking over at him. But this battle formation of yours isn't good enough to defeat me. Of course, this isn't all that I have to show. Emperor Xiao nodded before looking over at where the audience was seated. There, an elderly person with gray hair and a young-looking face stood up. Everyone was stunned to see who it was. Lord of Circus Island? Emperor Leng was taken aback too. She did not care about the Bai Ming clan. They were a top clan with several Dao Masters under them, but their Dao Masters were only at rank 1 or rank 2. Bai Ming Hao was the best of them, but even he was only at the top level of rank 2. Lord of Circus Island was another story. Being the owner of Circus Island, he was undoubtedly one of the overlords of the Eternal World. There were 6 Dao Masters under his patronage and each of them was incredibly powerful. Lord of Circus Island himself was a formidable opponent. He had stayed in the level of rank 3 Dao Master for many years and his strength was unfathomable. He ought to be evenly matched with Emperor Leng and Emperor Xiao themselves. Emperor Leng had to be careful when dealing with a person with such strength. She stared at him and asked coolly, Lord of Circus Island, are you going to intervene? Emperor Leng, both you and Emperor Xiao are my friends and you were once a couple. I'm not supposed to intervene in this matter. However, what you've secretly done lately is against the will of heaven, and therefore I must intervene. Lord of Circus Island said. His words surprised the people on the drill ground. Had Emperor Leng done something that went against the will of heaven? What exactly did she do? Lord of Circus Island turned to look at the alchemy master in the audience and asked, Alchemy master, can you watch over my daughter for me? No problem. The alchemy master smiled. Thank you. Lord of Circus Island then turned to his daughter Lin Wan. Wanner, you've been asking me to help Jianghu Shuang. Now I'll help him as you wish. Father, Lin Wan was a little surprised. Go now. Lord of Circus Island waved. Lin Wan nodded and went to take a seat next to the alchemy master. Finally he jumped down from the stand and stood next to Emperor Xiao. Very well, Lord of Circus Island. Emperor Leng laughed. She then looked around and addressed the crowd in a cold voice. Who else? Who else is also here to help Xiao? Come out. Me too, said a cold voice as another figure jumped off the stand. This person had long bloody hair and wore a bloody robe. He was Jian Wushuang's senior brother, Xueling Tian. Senior brother. Jian Wushuang looked at him. Xueling Tian grinned. Junior brother, I said I'd definitely help you in the event of mishaps. Master Blood Saber. Emperor Leng's fury was apparent in her cold voice. You're the master of the Void Temple. Are you really going to intervene in this matter? Ah. Emperor Leng, you misunderstood me, said a gentle voice. It belonged to a white-haired elder who had been sitting next to Xueling Tian the whole time. He was also one of the 18 masters of the Void Temple. The white-haired elder smiled. Emperor Leng, Master Blood Saber, will act in his individual capacity today. His actions today have nothing to do with the Void Temple. In his individual capacity? That's to say, the Void Temple won't be mad at me even if I kill him today? Emperor Leng retorted coldly. Correct. The white-haired elder gave a small nod. Very well. Her voice was as cold as the snow in the coldest winter. I thought this would be just an ordinary selection ceremony, But I didn't think there'd be so many unforeseen events and so many people to help Emperor Xiao. But that's fine too. Since you're all here, that saves me the time to go after you one by one. Today I'll kill you. Whoever's in Emperor Xiao's camp has to die. Heavenly Guards. Emperor Leng's scream rang through the entire imperial palace. Figures dressed in golden robes rushed out of the imperial palace and went to her at an extraordinary speed. Chapter 933 The War Breaks Out. Chapter 933 The War Breaks Out. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. There were 24 golden figures who had gathered behind Emperor Leng in total. Despite their expressionless faces, their aura was strong and steadfast. They were evidently Dao Masters. They're Emperor Leng's 24 heavenly guards. They're said to be Emperor Leng's most elite force and they're all genuine Dao Masters. Those on the drill ground exclaimed. Xiao. Emperor Leng turned to Xiao. This is all happening because of our marriage alliance. Does your clan intend to help? Fret not, Your Highness. Since we've formed a marriage alliance, we're now a family. Whoever is against you is also against our clan. Naturally, we're on your side, Xiao said with a laugh. Xiao then crushed a token. The crushed token caused a space wave to break out and a wormhole to appear in the void. Then, numerous people filed out of the wormhole. The 9 of them, coupled with Xiao, Elder He, and Xia Meng, meant there were now 12 members of the Xia clan present. They stood together, emanating dangerous auras. The 12 Dao Masters of the Xia clan were all here. Emperor Xiao, it's been a long time. How are you? Asked a booming voice that resembled the growl of a beast. Xia Tao. Emperor Xiao frowned as he stared at the leader of the Xia clan, who was a burly man with brown hair. His name was Xia Tao. He was the master of the Xia clan as well as Xia Meng's father. While he was not as strong as the ancestor of the Xia clan, he was also an overlord of the eternal world. Not even Emperor Xiao would dare underestimate him. Today Xia Tao had even brought all the other Dao Masters in his clan with him. You're here too, Lord of Circus Island. Looks like you've chosen to side with Emperor Xiao. Xia Tao narrowed his eyes at Lord of Circus Island. Correct. Lord of Circus Island nodded. What a pity. Xia Tao shook his head. I had previously entertained the idea of forming a marriage alliance with you, but it wasn't fulfilled due to some mishaps. Now that we couldn't be a family and you're in Emperor Xiao's camp, I'd have to keep you here forever. Lord of Circus Island laughed. I've lived for too long anyway. I'd be happy to have you help me end it. Enough of the chat. Let's settle our affairs here today, you bitch. Emperor Xiao sneered. Humph. You suffered such a terrible defeat back then and today, you'll experience the same. Emperor Leng's eyes glinted with a powerful killing intent. Go. Emperor Leng's command prompted everyone in her camp to move, including her 24 heavenly guards and the Dao Masters from the Xia clan. Take care of yourself, young man, Emperor Xiao said, casting a glance at Jian Wushuang. I will. Jian Wushuang nodded solemnly. He was no longer the same youngster that Emperor Xiao knew in the past. He was now qualified to participate in this war today. Kill? Everyone in Emperor Xiao's camp also began moving following his command. This included the 10 war gods with Di Jing at the helm, the Baiming clan, and other Dao Masters that Emperor Xiao invited, such as Lord of Circus Island and Master Blood Saber. Jian Wushuang gripped his Blood Mountain sword firmly and felt his aura skyrocket. He swiftly readied himself to attack. The camps of Emperor Xiao and Emperor Leng had more than 60 Dao Masters in total. They were about to collide. Hurry and retreat. We should retreat now. Everyone on the drill ground panicked when the two camps started to attack each other. Tens of millions of people at the drill ground withdrew with unprecedented shock and madness. They were very clear that the war between so many Dao Masters would cause incredible chaos and wanted nothing more than to retreat as far as possible for fear of getting involved. Even a battle between two Dao Masters would spell disastrous consequences for anyone unlucky enough to be nearby. Yet, there were more than 60 experts at the level of Dao Masters in the camps of Emperor Xiao and Emperor. That was such a big amount. Emperor Xiao, Emperor Leng, Lord of Circus Island, and Xia Tao reigned supreme among all these experts. Nobody wanted to get involved in such a war. Even the strong experts, including Deep Sea Palace Master and Elder Deadwood, in the audience had retreated to a distant place. None of them wanted to get involved because there was no promise that they would survive it. The experts from both camps finally collided in the void. Boom, 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 boom. There was a terrible explosion in the sky. The war had just begun, but there were already more than a dozen large black holes in the void. The smaller ones were almost 10 meters in diameter, while the bigger ones were more than 30 meters in diameter. Terrible forces were also directed onto the ground. Jian Wushuang and Xia Meng's battle had previously created many pits, but the entire drill ground was immediately reduced to ruins after a detonation. The drill ground continued to collapse despite having already been reduced to ruins. The spiritual powers of different colors formed spiritual storms one after another, sweeping in all directions. The entire battlefield was completely enveloped in an unprecedented storm. Those weaker than a Dao master would be killed if they touched the storm. Jian Wushuang, who lived in defiance of the natural order, was the only exception. The terrifying storm continued to expand at a frantic pace. The entire battlefield was also expanding wildly. The war broke out on the vast drill ground, but it was not large enough to accommodate the many powerful Dao masters. Before long, the battlefield covered more than half of the imperial palace. Bang! Nearly 100 buildings in one corner of the imperial palace fell apart following a loud explosion. They collapsed into smithereens that were swept away by a gust of wind. Swish! The ground in the center of the imperial palace was ruthlessly cleaved open with a flash of blade light, and a huge knife mark was left there. The mark was over 300 meters deep and made for a terrifying sight. Chapter 934 Instant Extermination in a 1 vs 3 Battle. Chapter 934 Instant Extermination in a 1 vs 3 Battle. It's too terrifying. What inhuman feats. Are they gods? A full-fledged war with more than 60 Dao Masters? How many Dao Masters can there be in the entire eternal world? Innumerable figures retreated far from the imperial palace to watch the unprecedented war unfolding in the center of the palace. Though they were far away, they could still feel the terrible fluctuations coming from the battlefield. There were unprecedented astonishment and awe in their eyes. Dao Master in the eternal world was tantamount to overlords in other worlds. They all possessed frightening power that was capable of destroying everything. It was rare enough to find 2 Dao Masters battling in the eternal world, never mind a war with more than 60 of them. This was a war that could frighten heaven and move earth. Meanwhile, over on the battlefield. Bitch, I'll kill you today, Emperor Xiao said coldly, his body filled with unprecedented killing intent. You're not qualified to do so. Emperor Leng was also filled with killing intent. Bang, 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 bang. There were dozens of impacts between the two in an instant. Suddenly the impact pushed Emperor Leng backward. Your strength hasn't improved even after so many years. Emperor Xiao sneered. Damn it. Emperor Leng was sullen. If Jian Wushuang hasn't cut off my arm, did you think you'd have an advantage over me? It was indeed unfortunate for Emperor Leng to have her arm cut off by Jian Wushuang. Her ability to self-repair was amazing, and under ordinary circumstances, her recovery would have been almost instantaneous. However, the sword essence from Sunrise Sword Emperor contained the Destruction Sword principle. It was so powerful that it halted her recovery process. Thus, Emperor Leng's one arm remained missing. She was disadvantaged with only one arm left, making her an easy target for Emperor Xiao. In another battle. Xia Tao, show me how you're going to keep me here forever. Lord of Circe's Island's voice was ethereal as if it came from far away. Humph, you'll see it right away. Following Xia Tao's snort, a huge axe appeared in his hand. He found himself standing next to Lord of Circe's Island after taking a single step. Since the beginning of the selection ceremony, Jian Wushuang's senior brother, Shueling Tian, had picked Xia Yu, the great elder of the Xia clan, as his opponent. Xia Yu's strength was not as good as Xia Tao's, but he had also reached the level of rank 3 Dao Master. His strength was similar to Shueling Tian's. They had been at odds since the fight between Jian Wushuang and Xia Meng. With the outbreak of the war, they immediately targeted each other. Both sides sent out 6 of their best Dao Masters to battle each other. The remaining Dao Masters also found their respective opponents. Jian Wushuang had been eyeing one person since the beginning of the war. It was none other than Xia Meng. Xia Meng had been hurt badly in the contest earlier, but his jade had saved his life. Jian Wushuang didn't believe that he would have another life-saving jade with him. Go to hell. The killing intent surged from Jian Wushuang's eyes as he charged at his opponent. Jian Wushuang. Xia Meng was terrified when he saw Jian Wushuang rushing toward him. He had mocked Jian Wushuang when Emperor Leng announced him to be Leng Wushuang's husband, but he knew very well that he was much weaker than Jian Wushuang. He knew he was no match for Jian Wushuang in a one-on-one battle. The latter's sword formation would just kill him outright. Therefore he called another 2 Dao masters next to him, saying, "Xia Qi, Elder Dong, let's kill Jian Wushuang together." Xia Qi and Elder Dong joined Xia Meng without hesitation and rushed toward Jian Wushuang. 3 Dao masters? Jian Wushuang's expression shifted ever so slightly. Don't worry. Xia Meng is the only one out of them who have reached the top of rank 1. The other 2 are just at the medium level of rank 1. You'll be able to fight them. Gu Qing's voice resounded inside him. Being in a lower realm, Jian Wushuang could not see the specific strength of these Dao masters. But Gu Qing could see it. They're all rank 1 Dao masters? Jian Wushuang felt reassured. Then let's fight. The Blood Mountain sword appeared in Jian Wushuang's hand following a roar, carrying astonishing power. Next to him, the 9th Heaven sword formation formed by 36 1-meter swords let out strong power. Jian Wushuang's killing intent surged, and in a flash, he clashed with the 3 Dao masters. Scram! Jian Wushuang bellowed, and the strong power of the Blood Mountain sword skyrocketed. Boosted by the forces of the 24 levels of the secret skills, which was 72 times stronger, he swung his sword. However, before using the sword, Jian Wushuang had also sent out an unearthly energy. That energy was from the mind-controlling secret skill, one of the 3 secret skills of the ancient god clan. The mind-controlling secret skill was used to attack a person's consciousness. After Jian Wushuang reached the eternal realm and his strength skyrocketed, the power of this skill improved too. Furthermore, his consciousness was also much stronger than typical Dao masters. In addition, the divergent bloodstone had also increased the power of this skill. The attack almost hit the 3 Dao masters at the same time. They were all impacted to a certain extent. Thus, when Jian Wushuang's sword arrived, the 3 Dao masters could barely put up a resistance. Bang, bang, bang. The 3 figures were forced backward nearly at the same time, but just as they were retreating, whoosh! Sharp, harsh wind-breaking sounds and fitful explosion noises filled the void. The 9th Heaven sword formation transformed into numerous meteors that aimed for Elder Dong at an amazing speed. Elder Dong was subsequently beheaded with his eyes were still wide open as if he could not believe what had just happened. The 3 of them, 3 Dao masters, had teamed up to fight a solo Jian Wushuang. However, Jian Wushuang ended up killed one of them with just one move. Chapter 935, The Seal was broken. Chapter 935, The seal was broken. How is this possible? Xia Meng was stunned. How could Jian Wushuang kill one of them when the 3 of them had gone up against him together? Does this younger still have tricks up his sleeve? Xia Meng thought in fear. Indeed, Jian Wushuang possessed unusual skills. He was unable to use his mind-controlling secret skill in his battle with Xia Meng earlier, but in this battle against 3 Dao masters, he surprisingly unleashed the skill in combination with the 9th Heaven sword formation. It was so effective that he instantly killed one of his opponents. This was the first Dao master that Jian Wushuang killed. It was unusual for an Eternal Realm expert to kill a Dao master. However, few noticed this as 3 Dao masters had died earlier in the battle. Master Mubai, Jian Wushuang is too powerful. We can't beat him, Xia Qi said. I know. Xia Meng was sullen. I've already asked Elder He for help. Elder He? Xia Qi was pleasantly surprised. Though both sides were evenly matched, Emperor Leng's camp outnumbered the other side. Thus, they were able to team up and confront their enemies together. The gloomy and cold Elder He had been fighting together with a heavenly guard against a war god of the other camp not far away. He withdrew from that fight after receiving Xia Meng's request and hastily rushed over to the latter. Elder He, Xia Meng greeted. Elder He stared fixedly at Jian Wushuang without replying to him. Kid, I know that you're the one who killed Second Master, he said. Back then, he had accompanied Xia Yan to go to Circus Island for a marriage proposal. In the end, the proposal failed and Xia Yan was even killed. When he returned to the Xia clan, he was punished for failing to protect his master. Since then, he held a grudge against Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang recognized Elder He too. Be careful. This person ought to be rank 2 Dao Master. Gu Qing's voice resounded inside him. Rank 2 Dao Master? Jian Wushuang's pupils shrunk. That means he has opened up 2 Dao. There were 3 ranks for a Dao Master. 1 rank meant 1 Dao. A rank 1 Dao master had opened up 1 Dao, a rank 2 Dao master had opened up 2 Dao and so on. But his Dao is just at the normal level and he's at the lower level among rank 2 Dao masters. You can try fighting him, Gu King said. I understand. Jian Wushuang nodded and in next moment, dozens of flowing lights burst out of his interspatial ring. The flowing lights merged and formed the 9th heaven sword formation that hovered in front of him. This was the second sword formation of the 9th heaven sword formation. Kill? Jian Wushuang wielded the lavender lightsaber formed out of 72 1-meter swords and swung it at the void. With a sharp and harsh sound, the lightsaber struck Elder He like a rapidly rotating awl. The crazing rotating awl struck Elder He's head with an incredible power at lightning speed. The attack would have killed an ordinary rank 1 Dao master before he could react. Elder He was different. Humph. Elder He gave his sleeve a flick and gray mist began gushing out. The mist gathered and soon formed a gray cloud. When the awl crashed into the vast and mysterious gray cloud, it was as if it hit a mass of cotton. It went through the cloud effortlessly. What a joke. With another flick of his sleeve, Elder He sent the 9th heaven sword formation flying back at Jian Wushuang, along with the gray cloud. What kind of skill is this? Jian Wushuang was shocked. His Dao might be weak but it's very strange. Be careful, Gu King said. Do I need you to tell me that? Jian Wushuang retorted. He then threw himself backward at a high speed. However, the gray cloud was even faster and it soon enveloped him completely. He couldn't see anything in the cloud and was beginning to lose his consciousness too. Boom. When he heard a wind-breaking sound next to him, he hastily turned around. However, it was too late for a vigorous palm smashed heavily onto his chest. Pfft. Jian Wushuang coughed up blood as he was thrown out of the cloud at high speed. His face turned deathly pale. Over on the stand, Leng Rushuang witnessed everything happening to him. The war had been going on for quite a while and more than half of the imperial palace was already in ruins. The experts were also engaged in heated battles but no matter how mad the situation became, no one tried to attack Leng Rushuang. No one wanted to hurt her and thus kept their distance from her. Therefore, she stood in place as a spectator of the battle since the beginning. Her beautiful face was pale with fright, but the most visible emotion she was expressing was anger. Yes, it was anger. Her anger was ignited when she saw Elder He severely injuring Jian Wushuang. Why? Mother, why? She whispered. Her voice was so low that only she could hear it. The rest were naturally oblivious as focused on the battle as they were. For all my life, I've never once disobeyed your words or went against your wishes. When Father broke things off with you and subsequently suffered defeat in your hands, I still stayed with you despite knowing it was your fault. So why would you treat me this way? I love Jian Wushuang. I want to marry him. Why would you stop me? Why? Leng Rushuang bellowed, her voice sending tremors through the world. There were unprecedented anger and madness in her eyes. There had been a heavy seal placed on her a long time ago to seal the icy heart poison inside her body. It was also meant to seal something more terrifying and inconceivable inside her. Now, alongside the crazed look in her eyes, the seal was unexpectedly broken. Chapter 936, Primordial Great Sin. Chapter 936, Primordial Great Sin. The fierce battle between the remaining Dao masters of the two camps continued. The battlefield was divided into three sections: Emperor Leng against Emperor Xiao, Lord of Circes Island against Xia Tao, and Xueling Tian against Xiaoyu. Emperor Leng was a little weaker than Emperor Xiao, but she was still persevering. Lord of Circes Island was evenly matched with Xia Tao. The only confrontation where one opponent was clearly superior was the one between Xueling Tian and Xiaoyu. How could this be? How could Master Blood Saber be so powerful? Both shocked and horrified, Xiaoyu could barely keep fighting on. He appeared to be in a very pathetic state. Xueling Tian's strength was far beyond his expectations. He became a rank 3 expert after opening 3 Dao and his Dao was fairly strong. Even so, Xueling Tian completely crushed him to the point where he could barely put up a fight. Xueling Tian was also a rank 3 expert but his Dao was even stronger. Moreover, he possessed an extraordinary saber which was much more powerful than Xiaoyu's emperor weapon. Fortunately, Xiaoyu had a Dao which was especially used for defense. Otherwise he would be utterly defeated. I fought him before but he wasn't this strong then, Xiaoyu thought. Just then, buzz. Out of nowhere, an unimaginably cold aura erupted. The aura seemed to have frozen the entire battlefield, even time and space. The Tao Masters in the Imperial Palace halted their movements the moment they detected the aura. That's. They turned to look at the source of the icy cold aura in surprise. They were startled to see who it was. Emperor Xiao and Emperor Leng, who had been fighting fiercely in the center of the battlefield, also stopped after detecting the aura. Then they realized it came from their daughter. No. Emperor Xiao's expression changed drastically. Mad. She's gone mad. Emperor Leng cried, appearing terrified. She released the seal? Does she want to die? Only both of them knew just what the seal was for. That was why both of them were so shocked. Leng Rushuang looked up, her beautiful eyes filled with endless killing intent. Swoosh. In a flash, she appeared in front of Jian Wushuang. She faced Elder He with her back against Jian Wushuang. You're the one who hurt him. Her voice was as cold as the 9 serenities. Elder He frowned, not knowing the reason for Leng Rushuang's sudden change. However, her cold aura frightened him. Nevertheless, he nodded without hesitation in response to her question. He wouldn't show fear as a rank 2 Tao Master. He was ready to follow up with a verbal answer. But before he could open his mouth, Leng Rushuang was already taking action. She appeared in front of Elder He, moving as swiftly and unpredictably as a ghost. She was so fast that it felt as if she was really a specter. Before Elder He could react, she patted his forehead with her beautiful and fair palm. It was a simple, gentle pat. The moment her palm came into contact with his forehead, a terrible chill took over his entire body. The coldness was the result of Leng Rushuang's icy heart poison. Elder He was stupefied as his body started to turn white, first from the forehead, then to the face, then to the torso, and finally the whole body. In the end, he was turned into an ice sculpture. Then, as a random gale of energy swept the area, the ice sculpture shattered into countless pieces before eventually vanishing in the void. In a split of a second, a rank 2 Tao Master had disappeared in a puff of smoke. Those who witnessed this became horrified, including the Tao Masters on the battlefield. They had watched a rank 2 Tao Master turned into an ice sculpture while alive and then broken into pieces. What kind of skill was Leng Rushuang using? This. Jian Wushuang's eyes were full of amazement. He had seen this skill before. He had seen Leng Rushuang kill with the same skill in the ancient world. But they were now in the eternal world, and the Tao Masters here were far more powerful. Elder He was a rank 2 Tao Master whom Jian Wushuang couldn't win against even after using his full strength, yet Leng Rushuang was able to kill him with a gentle pat. Great sin. Primordial great sinner. Oh my God. King Gu called out in horror, his voice reverberating in Jian Wushuang's mind. Primordial great sinner? What's that? Jian Wushuang immediately asked. There's no time to explain the details, but basically, your little girlfriend's life is a tragedy. She's destined to suffer endless torture, and the reason should be related to her parents, Gu King said solemnly. She's destined to suffer? Jian Wushuang was startled. Leng Rushuang was expressionless after killing Elder He and merely looked around coldly. Who else wants to hurt him? There was an unfathomable killing intent in her voice. Her cold voice and the surging icy aura around her made every Tao Master on the battlefield ill at ease. Xia Meng had already run far away in fear. This is madness. Emperor Leng bellowed, staring straight at her daughter. Shuanger, are you crazy? How can you break the seal in your body just for Jian Wushuang? Don't you know what you'll face after doing this? There'll be endless pain and torture. It'll be a life worse than death. Is such a life worth it just for the sake of a man? Chapter 937 National Master. Chapter 937, National Master. Is such a life worth it just for the sake of a man? Emperor Leng's cold voice reverberated in the air, her every word ringing loud and clear in Leng Rushuang's head. Is it worth it? Leng Rushuang muttered. Even so, her lips were curved into a smile. She then looked up at Emperor Leng. The only hint of warmth I've ever felt in my life was when he healed me in the ancient world. You ask me if it's worth it? Of course. Her voice was as cold as ice and carried a never-before-seen determination. Her resolution was firmer than ever, as reflected in her eyes. Whatever happened today, and regardless of what would happen in the future, she would never regret it. You idiot. Emperor Leng continued to reprimand her daughter. Emperor Xiao strangely didn't say anything. Jian Wushuang, who stood next to Leng Rushuang, was thoroughly stupefied. Emperor Leng's words were still ringing in his head. Once the seal is released, Leng Rushuang will be endlessly tortured and live a life that is worse than death. Gu King, what the hell is going on? What's going on? The surge of Jian Wushuang's emotions was turbulent and violent. It's a long story, so let's that aside for the time being. Your little girlfriend really loves you, seeing as she'd break her seal for you. If it's possible to do so in the future, you should treat her kindly, said Gu King. Easy for you to say. Jian Wushuang's face darkened. On the battlefield, Emperor Leng looked coolly at her daughter. With a snort, she looked away and her gaze began roaming around. When she saw the situation on the battlefield, she couldn't help furrowing her brows. Emperor Xiao had been well prepared for their battle. Not only did he invite the Baiming clan and a large number of solitary experts, Lord of Circus Island and Master Blood Saber of Void Temple were also present. From the looks of it, his camp wasn't any weaker than hers. She noticed that Master Blood Saber was thoroughly crushing Xiao in their battle. Meanwhile, she was also at a disadvantage against Emperor Xiao because she had yet to recover from Jian Wushuang's attack earlier. To make things worse, Leng Rushuang had released her seal and even used such a strange and frightening skill to kill a rank 2 Dao master of the Xia clan. She had thrown the power equilibrium of the two opposing camps off balance. Her camp was at a disadvantage now. If Master Blood Saber killed Xiao or Leng Rushuang ended up slaughtering everyone, she would be completely defeated. Emperor Leng suddenly looked up as she pondered this. National Master, look at the situation. Aren't you going to make your move? If you don't make your move now, our many years of effort will be in vain. Her cold voice echoed through heaven and earth. The Dao Masters on the battlefield as well as the spectating experts outside the Imperial Palace were stunned. National Master. The mysterious National Master from the Tang Kingdom of the Eastern Land. Hee hee. The laughter seemed to contain a kind of magic power. The experts couldn't stop themselves from looking toward the source of the laughter. They watched as a slender figure appear next to Emperor Leng. This person was dressed in an old gray robe and held a strip of cloth in his hand. On the cloth were the words, fortune-telling. He had gray hair and a wizened face. His eyes were so dark that they were unreadable and there seemed to be green flames burning behind his pupils. His aura was so plain that he came off looking like an ordinary soothsayer in the market. However, those who recognized him knew that this ordinary-looking old geezer was terribly powerful. Years ago, there had been a civil war in the Tang Kingdom of the Eastern Land. Emperor Xiao had severed all ties with Emperor Leng and they waged a massive war against each other. Emperor Xiao was superior to Emperor Leng both in terms of prestige and power in the Tang Kingdom, but he still ended up tasting defeat. There was only a reason for his defeat, the soothsayer. This is the mysterious National Master of the Tang Kingdom of the Eastern Land, the creator of Divine Sea and the Blood Eagle Amor? Jian Wushuang thought as he looked at the soothsayer. He had heard of this National Master before. Moreover, he had been quite stunned after learning about the National Master's skills. Divine Sea could crush experts below the level of Dao Masters. On the other hand, the Blood Eagle armor not only possessed strong defensive capabilities, but it could also enhance the user's offensive power. It was unlike anything that Jian Wushuang had ever seen in the Eternal World. He was the creator of both skills. Without his help, Emperor Leng wouldn't have defeated Emperor Xiao. You finally showed up. Emperor Xiao's expression turned grim at the sight of the soothsayer. No one was more well-versed with the National Master's skills than him, which was why he remained in fear of the latter. The National Master was the only one out of the top experts of the Eternal World that he was afraid of. I didn't plan on showing up so early. After all, your friend hasn't shown up yet. The soothsayer smiled. Friend? Emperor Leng frowned. She didn't expect Emperor Xiao to still have reinforcements that had yet to appear. As expected of a person who could frighten junior brother Xiao. I thought I hid well, but you still found me, said an ethereal voice that came from outside the Imperial Palace. The voice had clearly come from a faraway place, but its owner had already appeared next to Emperor Xiao. The gray-haired man was dressed in a white robe. Though he appeared to be an old man, the skin of his face was finer than most youngsters. He looked at the soothsayer and Emperor Leng indifferently as if he was looking into the air. He had an ethereal and incomparably unique temperament. It's you, Emperor Yun? Emperor Leng's pupils shrunk in fright. Everyone else on the battlefield was also stunned. Emperor Yun. There had been 4 emperors in the golden age of the Tang Kingdom of the Eastern Land, and Emperor Yun was ranked 3rd among them. He had gone missing for years after Emperor Qing's death, but he had now shown himself again. This generated a space rift in the skies overlooking the entire imperial city, laying waste to the once illustrious city, leaving many structures and buildings in the city crushed and crumbled. The horrific display of power by the soothsayer left the fighting Dao masters and warriors, including those watching from the outskirts of the imperial city, awestruck. With such ease, he had undone my magic? Emperor Yun gasped in horror as all color had left his face. Suddenly, everything around them turned completely pitch black. The entire world was shrouded by utter darkness that tolerated not even one glimmer of light. A terrifying reign of literal darkness endured as a strong and unmistakable aura of bloodthirsty malice simmered in the air, sending fear and shivers down the spines of everyone around as if they had stepped through the frightening gates of hell. The stares and glares of everyone around instantly rested upon the origin of the hateful aura, Emperor Xiao himself. Emperor Xiao scoffed once. Suddenly, his saber swung forth dangerously with the force that he had been channeling. So powerful was the stroke that it could even send tremors across the heavens and earth. The blade shone with a pale, deathly flash as it clove the skies and earth into a half, sending a bright flash across the eerie scrim of darkness that persisted in their surroundings and blinded those who had tried to look. The terrible flash of light tore through the air, the speed of its travel unfathomable and beyond comprehension. Yet, faced with such a terrible stroke, the same assured grin remained upon the gnarly face of the old soothsayer who stood and waited for his adversary's stroke to fall upon him. Whoosh! This shining brilliance from Emperor Xiao's stroke sliced through the figure of the old soothsayer, exiting through his body and continued its way to the huge palace in the city. The flash of light of the aura of Emperor Xiao's blow crashed into the huge and massive palace complex, reducing the countless of sections and adjacent buildings and the palace itself, once the jewel of the imperial city, into nothing but dust and debris. Desolation and devastation was everywhere that even the earth had been flipped over. With only one stroke from his saber, Emperor Xiao had brought down the once majestic and imposing palace complex of the Tang Empire, leaving nothing but filth and grime. But the soothsayer, having been hit by the stroke earlier, was hardly injured as his figure reformed. Floating in the air, the old soothsayer continued wearing a sinister grin as he remained unfazed as if the stroke had barely grazed him. How is this possible? Emperor Xiao stammered with shock. He had known that the old soothsayer was strong and powerful, but never had he expected such a monstrous difference between their strengths. Instead, the soothsayer had appeared to be even stronger than he was during their previous encounter. Emperor Xiao and Emperor Yun, 2 of the 4 emperors of the Tang Empire of the East. There was an inexplicable and yet distinct twinkle in the soothsayer's eyes as he spoke casually. You have done well to reach such remarkable heights as Dao Masters. You both might have been able to defeat me if you both had joined hands in our previous encounter. But I am afraid, things are completely different now. After all, my strength has recovered much after those years. Chapter 939, Critical Help. Chapter 939, Critical Help. His strength has recovered much? A frown creased upon the brows of both Emperor Xiao and Emperor Yun as a foreboding dread crept into them. Has his strength reached that level? Emperor Yun asked himself quietly. That level? Emperor Xiao asked, startled. By that, Emperor Yun referred to a height which their teacher, the Tang Emperor, had once achieved. Even Emperor Qing, the strongest of the 4 emperors, had nearly reached that very level of powers. So close he was from reaching his goal that his fingers could barely graze the threshold. Still, that was none other than Emperor Qing himself. The 2 were still leagues and leagues behind. This is bad. Emperor Xiao gasped with dismay. Right at the moment, the figure of the soothsayer who stood before them shimmered and disappeared. Swoosh! In the flash of an instant, the soothsayer reappeared behind Emperor Xiao and Emperor Yun. Such speed! Overcome by shock, both Emperor Xiao and Emperor Yun felt their blood leaving their face. The speed that the old soothsayer had unleashed confirmed their suspicions. He had reached that very level of strength. You have failed before, Emperor Xiao. Why do you persist on such a vain quest? The soothsayer's eerie snicker reached into the ears of Emperor Xiao and Emperor Yun. Emperor Xiao and Emperor Yun turned around immediately. They had barely turned, only to see that the old soothsayer was flailing the sleeve of his robe as he cast forth a terrible force of energy from within its folds. Bang! Bang! Emperor Xiao and Emperor Yun both felt something exploding within their bodies instantly, followed by a huge mouthful of blood that rushed up their throats. Vomiting furiously, the pair immediately plummeted from the sky, crashing down into the earth. Boom! A fresh crater had appeared, in addition to the already wretched state of the land ravaged by battle and carnage. There came a sudden groan and another crashing crescendo. The crater had disappeared, replaced by a deep and bottomless abyss. Emperor Xiao and Emperor Yun had been struck so badly that they have both been cast deep into the abyss that no signs of life came from the darkness below. This sent a shiver of silence across the entire battlefield. The Dao masters and warriors fighting all paused in their tracks and beheld, with fear and awe, the invincibility of the old soothsayer. Emperor Xiao and Emperor Yun are both frightening monstrosities in their own right. Yet now, right before the eyes of everyone present, they have been pummeled into ignominious defeat like a helpless bug before the overwhelming strength of the old soothsayer. What indomitable strength! Emperor Xiao. Jian Wushuang was also equally startled by the spectacle. Good gracious! What came before were merely ordinary Dao masters despite their strengths and powers. Yet this person, he is of an utterly different class. The Gu King's frantic cries resounded over Jian Wushuang's mind. The terrible sight of the undefeatable soothsayer who was afloat in midair became the center of everyone's attention. His throbbing eyes, flashing with a manic glint, turned and bore straight into Jian Wushuang. Ah! Never would I expect that I would encounter one who is learned in the methods of inverse cultivation here in this domain. An eerily ghastly laugh emitted from the throat of the old soothsayer. His eyes flared as he held Jian Wushuang in his gaze. A student of the methods of inverse cultivations. Oh, the irony of fates, you are a rare breed even in the wide vastness of this domain. If only I have met you sooner. I might even make you my personal disciple. It's a pity that you have chosen the wrong side. And for that, I will have you slay you now, for you leave me no choice. With that, the soothsayer's figure shimmered once more and disappeared. Be careful, Jian Wushuang. The piercing cry of the Gu King clamored hectically in Jian Wushuang's mind. Jian Wushuang felt his eyes contracting instantly as his foe made his move. For the first time in his life, he felt an alarming sensation tingling in his mind, warning him of grave danger the moment the soothsayer had disappeared. Without any hesitation he kicked at the ground and leaped, trying his best to retreat to safety as fast as he could. Ha! You can't escape. The shrill and eerie giggle resounded once more. So fast was his speed, a blinding flash he turned into with the quickness that startled even Emperor Xiao and Emperor Yun. A speed so fast that Jian Wushuang could never hope to match. The soothsayer was so close to catching up with Jian Wushuang when suddenly, a cold and frosty aura surged towards him. Ah! The brows of the old soothsayer rose, puzzled as he turned. The sight of Leng Wushuang, terrible and cold, in her rippling robes of flowing white filled his sight as the frosty coldness pricked at him incessantly. You dare lay a finger on him? Leng Wushuang's voice hummed icily through the air. With a wave of her hand, she summoned a white, icy wave of force and cast forth the energy she wielded, turning the air before her into ice instantly. Leng Wushuang thrust forth her palm, sending forth blasts of icy jets shooting at the soothsayer. Humph, parlor tricks. The soothsayer sneered with disdain. He remained rooted to where he was, summoning merely a flicker of flames from his eyes. Swoosh! Jet-black flames burst forth suddenly, burning him and lighting up the skies in a voracious inferno that feasted on the abundance of oxygen around him, dispelling all the coldness and iciness that Leng Wushuang had summoned earlier. I would never have shown you mercy if not for the fact that you are Emperor Leng's daughter. Begone now. With his ending words, the soothsayer roared, sending forth an blistering heat wave of black flames that turned everything around him into a sea of flames which sweltering heat forced even Leng Wushuang away. The soothsayer had not stayed his feet. In a split second later he reappeared directly behind Jian Wushuang. Die. The soothsayer stretched out his finger, pointing at Jian Wushuang's fleeing back. No. Jian Wushuang felt fear and panic as he felt his face turning pale. Blasted! Jian Wushuang could hear the Gu King exclaiming loudly within him. What seemed to be a simple point with his finger had in fact sent a blast of force that shot through the air with terrifying speed and intensity, leaving a corkscrew of air currents in its wake. It caught up to Jian Wushuang in an instant, leaving him no opening to maneuver to safety as it struck him directly with a massive and frightening force. Bang! Jian Wushuang felt a faint hum from within him, followed by a huge explosion that blasted a huge and bloody hole on Jian Wushuang's torso. With a cavity as large as a bowl, the force had driven through Jian Wushuang's chest and exited from his back. Even so, Jian Wushuang could still feel residual energies of the force within him, churning angrily as the energies gnawed and gnashed at his life force. Whoosh! Jian Wushuang was losing control of his own movements, plunging straight down towards the ground. Beside him, Leng Rushuang watched with horror as Jian Wushuang fell. No, no! Leng Rushuang cried out loud, the strong and terrible cold aura emanating from her instantly soared at an unprecedented pace. With just the blink of an eye, she had achieved a newfound state of strength. I will kill you. Utter rage and malice hemmed Leng Rushuang's threatening words. White and icy mists began to surround and encompass around Leng Rushuang. Despite its seemingly harmless appearance, a mere strand of the fog held sufficient energies to annihilate an ordinary Dao master. The white foggy veil enclosed around Leng Rushuang, drastically raising her powers that now began to erupt. The sight of the falling Jian Wushuang was also witnessed by one other person aside from Leng Rushuang, Xueling Tian, who was equally terrified watching his junior brother being mortally injured. Junior brother? Xueling Tian's face expression twisted with rage and hate as he glared at the soothsayer with burning eyes. From his robes, he produced a token in his hand. Xueling Tian crushed the token and immediately uttered a swift message. Teacher, junior brother is in grave danger. We need critical help. Chapter 940, The Calamitous Stomp. Chapter 940, The Calamitous Stomp. Far away at the ancient sect of the Firmament territory, silence reigned with despotic authority across the fastness of the stronghold of the sect. The disciples of the sect, including the palace masters of the Dao palaces, have all left to take part in a hunting tournament at the Heavenly Peak Valley. There was but one person who remained in the stronghold. Perched atop the peak of a mountain, Xianyi was clothed fully in white, gazing at the boundless skies above him with his hands held behind him. The message from Xueling Tian, who was far away at the imperial city of the Tang Empire, came to him with the speed of light. Crack. A crack appeared in the air before him suddenly. The crack was a mere minuscule crevice in the fabric of space, yet it had adjoined with the surroundings of the imperial city of the Tang Empire despite being leagues and leagues away. So it comes finally? Xianyi murmured as his gaze slowly shifted to the crack. His gaze sharpened instantly. It was the stare of a predator regarding its prey. That is your cue, Sect Master. With a simple voice, Xianyi uttered his instructions. His voice rang magically from all corners of the stronghold. There was a brief moment of stillness and peace within the stronghold as Xianyi's voice faded. Then came a voice, deep and ancient, as if the voice of an entity of archaic origins from another dimension, rumbled slowly. You are certain that you require me to act? The rumbling voice asked. Yes. Xianyi answered, his head dipping slightly. Very well. Remember the pact between us. The ancient voice groaned once more. Naturally. You will be able to go to wherever you wish after this battle. Xianyi smiled and pointed at the crack in the air before him, saying, I have opened the portal for you. You may go. Very well. Leave the rest to me. The ancient voice echoed through the hallways of the stronghold. Just then, the floors of the stronghold began to shake violently. The violent tremor, coupled with the cacophony of collapsing structures and construction, clamored wildly as if the entire stronghold had been utterly tossed and overturned. Disaster. An apocalypse. In only a fraction of a second, the stronghold of the ancient sect had been reduced to mere rubbles and debris. It was fortunate that most of the disciples of the sect had left for the hunting tournament lest they would have been caught in the disastrous calamity of destructive which could have claimed a great many of their lives. Far away atop the mountaintops, Xianyi surveyed the spectacle from his seat with indifference. Of the entire ancient sect or even the eternal world, Xianyi was the only one who knew that there slumbered a gigantic behemoth beneath the stronghold of the sect. And after many long years and ages of rest, the monster had truly awakened. Bang! With a deafening crash, a huge golden arm, stronger than even a mountain, stretched from the depths of the underground. The huge golden arm slammed into the ground and lifted the monster up with the crashing din of collapsing mountains and terrain. Finally, the huge monster got to his feet. Towering at more than 1,000 feet, the skin of the hulking giant glowed with a deep shade of gold. Destructive strength pulsed in the veins of his sturdy limbs as he stood motionless. Yet the mere sight of him was enough to invoke fear and panic. This huge giant studied the crack in the continuum of space before him with his stern and alert eyes. His arm reached forth, clutching tightly at the edges of the space rift. Summoning his strength, the giant ripped and tore at the crack. Swoosh! With his sheer might, the giant had enlarged the crack into a huge black hole that he could now step into. We will meet again, Xian Yi. As he spoke, the giant stepped into the threshold of the pitch-black darkness and disappeared. A thin smile lined across Xian Yi's face, who had witnessed everything. At the front lines of the battlefield at the Imperial City. Despite scoring a hit on Jian Wushuang and pounded a hole on his chest, the soothsayer frowned with doubt. Have I missed his life core? The soothsayer asked himself with surprise. A practitioner or warrior of the eternal realm would perish and die if the life core of the person was destroyed. Then again, the soothsayer had failed to detect the existence of a life core when his blow had struck Jian Wushuang earlier. Could it be due to his methods of inverse cultivation? The soothsayer wondered aloud. Despite having heard of the methods of inverse cultivation before, the soothsayer knew only that most practitioners of the methods of inverse cultivation were strange and bizarre in their own right. He did not know anything more about the practice of inverse cultivations. He did not know that Jian Wushuang had achieved the eternal realm, the third step of the methods of inverse cultivation, the everlasting realm, where his life core was fully assimilated by his flesh, sinews, bones, and even the cells of his body. For this reason, the third step was called the everlasting realm. It was the stage where his life would never diminish as long as his physical body endured. Damn you! A sharp and furious cry rang deep into the ears of the soothsayer. Gripped by intense fury and rage, Leng Rushuang threw herself towards the soothsayer. Even the old soothsayer could not help but grimace at the stabbing cold as he braced himself and fought against his assailant. Many warriors yelled and bellowed at the sight of Jian Wushuang being severely injured. Some cheered jubilantly while some cried with concern and dismay. The warriors of Emperor Xiao's forces grew angered and distressed, whereas the warriors of the forces of Emperor Leng applauded with glee and delight. Is Jian Wushuang dead at last? Emperor Leng murmured, her gaze turning sharp suddenly with anticipation. The one person who had most welcomed the death of Jian Wushuang would be none other than Xiao Meng himself. Ah! Dead now, are you? Jian Wushuang, are you finally dead? Xiao Meng screamed with joy as he burst into a maniacal laughter. Good, really good. A country bumpkin such as you from a small and weak sect of a minuscule domain dare compete with me for a woman. What makes you think you are worthy of competing against me? In his frenzied state of joy, Xiao Meng's delirious roars boomed across the front lines loudly. However, suddenly, watch out, young master! An angry voice called out to him. The loud cries restored a brief moment of clarity to Xiao Meng, who recognized the voice. It was one of the warriors of his clan, the Xia clan. Yet, the voice had instead puzzled Xiao Meng. Due to Leng Rushuang's sudden burst of strength, Xiao Meng had earlier retreated to the edges of the battlefield. He was certain that there were no enemies around him and he was in no immediate danger. But why was his kin frantically warning him of danger? Xiao Meng was dazed in thought when he noticed a huge shadow looming over him. Is the sky turning dark? Xiao Meng lifted his head absent-mindedly. His eyes widened with shock as his head raised. A gigantic dark golden foot, with a monstrous immensity that dwarfed even a mountain, loomed over him. He had no inkling as to where the gigantic foot had came from, but the mere sight of its enormity left him speechless and frozen with panic. For reasons unknown, the gigantic golden foot seemed to be falling right on him. No! Xiao Meng burst into the most shrilling howl he had made in his life, before he was instantly crushed by the huge foot a split second later. Bang! A flash of thunderbolt thundered imperiously. The ground of the whole imperial city shook violently. The huge, dark golden foot fell upon Xiao Meng, smashing into him and reduced him into no more but a mass of flesh, viscera and blood. Chapter 941, Master of the Ancient Sect. Chapter 941, Master of the Ancient Sect. A gigantic foot, dark gold in color, fell on Xia Mang and crushed him to death. Young Master Mang. Son. Xia Tao, who was fighting furiously against the Lord of Circus Island, with numerous elites from the Xia clan, witnessed the whole tragedy. Fury took them immediately. In the happen next, however, left the entire crowd stunned. A massive and startlingly wide black hole emerged in the sky near the edges of the battlefield like a huge portal wide open. It was from this black hole that the gigantic golden foot had emerged, yet that was merely the precursor of what was to come. From the darkness of the vortex, the gigantic foot lowered and revealed the complete figure of an towering giant, blushing dark golden, at a height of over 1,000 feet that lorded over the entire expanse of the battlefield. With a girth extremely wide and huge, the behemoth's mere presence sent fear and awe into everyone witnessing its advent. His eyes shone with a dark golden glimmer, where none could miss the unmistakable air of conceit and contempt. His gigantic form stood firmly, proud and erect like a pillar that held up the strata of the skies, which even the continuum of time and space were faintly warped by his sheer presence alone. Despite his majestic indifference, the most unmistakable were the several dark golden four-pointed star patterns etched on his forehead, between his eyebrows. The Gu King, upon recognizing the presence of the hulking figure, felt a quiver to his heart and howled sternly, "It's an ancient god of imperial lineage." That was true. The giant's dark golden physique and the four-pointed star patterns between his eyebrows were clear signs of an ancient god of imperial lineage. Most copper-armored, silver-armored and even gold-armored ancient gods of the ancient god clan have their iconic four-pointed star patterns, which symbolize their strength and powers, etched upon their chests. Only a pure-blooded ancient god of imperial lineage would have these symbolic patterns etched between their eyebrows. Moreover, this colossal ancient god has a whole of 7 four-pointed star patterns between his eyebrows. A total of 7 four-pointed stars, which would mean that he was a 7-star ancient god of imperial lineage. He was just one class below King Luo Zhen, the former master of the Gu King, who has 8 stars. "I am Gu Tong, the master of the ancient sect." A deep, thick voice came out of the mouth of the ancient god, reverberating loudly, sending a tremor through the entire imperial palace. Everyone at the front lines, including the numerous Dao masters at the battlefield, were stunned at the appearance of Gu Tong. Yet their amazement was hardly surprising, for Gu Tong's huge body was unimaginably massive. With a height of over 1,000 feet, Gu Tong dominated even the large hilly mountains, and his mere presence humbled all that witnessed him appear. The ancient god clan? And yet a 7-star ancient god of imperial lineage? The old soothsayer frowned quietly with dreading apprehension. His position as the national master of the Tang Kingdom of the Eastern Lands would hardly amount to anything before an entity of such indomitable strength and greatness. The tale of the renowned ancient god clan was hardly unheard of to him. An ordinary 3-star ancient god alone would have the strength equivalent to that of a normal Dao master. 4-star ancient gods would be equal to extremely powerful, if not one of the best, Dao masters. Those beyond the class of 4 stars would wield even greater and unfathomable powers. Gu Tong, however, was an ancient god of 7 stars, one who also bore the bloodline of imperial lineage. "My lord." A gentle call had sounded abruptly. It was naturally Shui Lingtian who had spoken. "You are a disciple of Shen Yi." "My avatar had met you before years ago." Gu Tong recognized him as he spoke slowly. "Shen Yi has bade me to come to his disciple's aid." "Who shall I strike down?" Gu Tong's dark golden eyes surveyed his surroundings. "It is him, master." Shui Lingtian's finger pointed straight at the soothsayer. This made the old soothsayer felt a shudder as his face darkened immediately. "You." Malice flickered instantly in his eyes as Gu Tong's gaze transfixed upon the soothsayer. "Die." With a huge battle cry, Gu Tong struck forth mercilessly. Surrounded by the many Dao masters and other warriors outside the imperial palace, Gu Tong threw a strong blow at his quarry. What seemed to be any ordinary punch tore apart the fabric of space, creating a huge black hole that was hemmed with crackling thunderclaps snapping angrily. The rolling mass of energy thundered furiously, reaching before the soothsayer in the blink of an eye. Rumble. The force of the blow ripped at the winds, the billowing currents howling savagely. No one watching this spectacle was without fear and panic. Their sights could hardly be removed from the impending blow heading straight for its target. To rest of the warriors at the front lines, was hardly a mere blow from a punch, but a destructive supernova threatening to explode, heading swooping down on its prey. The huge mass of energy sped straight with blinding speed. It was amazing that with Gu Tong's huge girth, he could move with such quickness and agility. Watching as the huge supernova, threatening to smash face-first into him, the soothsayer could hardly suppress his fearfulness no more. He raised his old and gnarly palm, channeling energies that accumulated upon his open palms in the form of black, eerie, swirling tendrils of fumes. His palm grew larger and larger in an instant. Never had he employed his full strength even when he was fighting against Emperor Xiao, Emperor Yun or Leng Rushuang. But now, with his own life at stake against one so powerful as a 7-star ancient god, the old soothsayer would hardly dare keep any more reservations. The magic cloud palm. With a low growl, the soothsayer thrusted his palm forth, sending tendrils of jet-black fumes churning around him with a stench of foul-smelling odor. With steeled resolve, he unleashed the greatest destructive force he could muster. Boom! The two bodies of energy smashed directly into each other, emitting a fierce, blood-curdling roar, followed by terrifying waves of surging air. Buffeted by the angry, rolling winds, the resultant force of the meeting blows ruptured whatever strength left of the fabric of space, sending huge sickening groans of something being ripped to shreds and pieces. The shock waves rippled from the center of their clash, swept across the entire breadth of the huge battlefield, the front lines of the skirmish taking place at the Imperial City. The Dao Masters watching from the outskirts shuddered when the waves of tremor hit them, their blood swirled and simmered uncontrollably. Some collapsed, screaming in agony and pain, whereas some felt the taste of blood in their mouth from the internal damage incurred by the blast. The unforgiving blasts of air tore into what remained of the Imperial City, pummeling the still-standing structures, trees and flora into rubbles and ruins that nothing was left thereafter. With one single blow, the remains of the Imperial City, the shadows of its former glory, had been reduced into nothing but a mere memory. Craters and filth littered across the entire expanse of the Imperial City, with no traces of flora and vegetation nor any remnants of buildings and structures visible. Just where the two destructive mights clash. The old soothsayer suddenly spat a mouthful of blood, warm and fresh. His face turned pale and frail from the ordeal. He had suffered a huge blow that had threw him off his feet. Standing earlier at the center of the battlefield of the Imperial City, he had been thrown so far that he smashed into a mountain outside of the Imperial City, reducing the mountain into no more than a pile of debris and boulders. Silence rose over the entire surroundings like an apparition. At its very center, stood the dark golden form of Gu Tong, who then cast his gaze afar into the outskirts of the Imperial City, his dark golden eyes looking intently at the fallen piles of rubbles. From the pile of rubbles a figure leaped into the air. Whoosh! The soothsayer had risen and has returned. Chapter 942 Blood-Killing Plate Armor. Chapter 942 Blood-Killing Plate Armor. The soothsayer stopped midair after bursting out of the mountain waste. He was a complete mess. His face was pale and there was still blood on the corners of his mouth. However, he was not all flustered and his eyes appeared radiant. Ha ha! Suddenly he burst out laughing like a madman. Gu Tong, no, I should call you King Gu Tong since you're an ancient god of imperial kinsmen, the soothsayer said. To be honest, I was scared when I saw a 7-star imperial god like you. Even at the peak of my strength, I'm no match for you. But obviously you're not fully recovered or you wouldn't have appeared in this world. I think you currently only have 10% of your usual strength and your battle capability is only at the 5-star level. Otherwise, I wouldn't have survived your attack earlier. The soothsayer was well aware of the terrible power of the 7-star imperial god. It would take a 7-star imperial god at its peak a measly finger to kill him. However, Gu Tong was evidently far from it. I can easily kill you with only 10% of my strength, Gu Tong retorted in a cold but majestic voice. Really? The soothsayer replied coolly with a smile. He then waved his hand in the air. Buzz. A stream of black air current burst out of the depths of the palace that had been razed to the ground. It was accompanied by a stench that rose from the ground and gradually grew stronger. Then, out of the blue, a bloody flowing light rose from the bottom of the palace and flew toward the soothsayer. Soon, this bloody flowing light was in the soothsayer's hands. It appeared to be a scarlet armor. The size of the armor was similar to the Blood Eagle armor that Jianghu once obtained, but its aura was much more powerful and contained an intense killing intent that would scare even a Dao Master. Blood-killing armor? Gu Tong stared at the scarlet armor in surprise. He could recognize the scarlet armor. It was a special treasure that was valuable and powerful beyond measure. You're a 7-star Imperial God indeed. You really know a lot. But this isn't the blood-killing armor. It's actually called the blood-killing plate armor. Still wearing a cold smile, the soothsayer put on the scarlet armor. His aura immediately skyrocketed with a potent killing intent. I've been pouring a copious amount of luck into it day and night all these years, and it's now fully repaired. The soothsayer gave Gu Tong a chilly look. King Gu Tong, our previous collision doesn't count. Let's find out who's the winner now. Gu Tong said nothing, but his expression changed and there was a thunderbolt flashing inside his dark golden pupils. With a sudden expansion of his body, he then slammed into the soothsayer. Hee. The soothsayer cackled. With magic clouds bursting out of his slender body, he began growing at an alarming rate until he was hundreds of feet tall. While he was not as large as Gu Tong, they were quite a match. Come on. The soothsayer was excited. The two of them collided in the next moment. Boom, boom, boom. Terrifying explosions echoed in the sky. The soothsayer had been a lot weaker than Gu Tong in their earlier collision and had been completely crushed. Now equipped with the blood-killing plate armor, he was almost evenly matched with Gu Tong. In fact, he was even in the position to put up an aggressive fight. Their fierce battle caused powerful aftermath that caused the nearby Dao Masters and experts to retreat further. Even Emperor Leng, Emperor Xiao, and Emperor Yun, who had just got out of the pit, had to back away. Not even the three of them had the room to intervene in a battle of such a magnitude. Moreover, they had their own opponents to worry about. Bitch, hurry up and surrender. Despite his pale face, Emperor Xiao managed to produce an earth-shattering bellow. Damn it. Emperor Leng wore a somber expression as she looked around her. The fact that her camp had been on the losing side forced her to get the National Master's help. However, they ended up having to fend for themselves anyway after the terrifying ancient god of the Imperial kinsman made a sudden appearance and kept the National Master busy. Both Emperor Xiao and Emperor Yun were now ready to fight again. On the other side of the battlefield, Xueling Tian had already defeated and wounded Xiao. This was incredibly bad news for her. Xia Tao. Emperor Leng's cold voice drifted to where Xia Tao, the master of Xia clan, was fighting hard with Lord of Circus Island. Xia Tao immediately turned to look at her in alarm. The National Master and I've done our best in the battle today, but if you're holding back and waiting to take advantage of us, then our previous agreement will be null. We'll leave and hand Tang of the East over to Xiao. There was a hint of decisiveness in her voice. She paused before continuing, Humph. The Xia clan has survived in Tang of the East since ancient times. You must have many more unfathomable resources than these Dao Masters you dispatched. You have the Immortal Army, don't you? Don't you think it's the time to use it? Her words stunned Xia Tao. The Xia clan had held immense power in Tang of the East for many years. Even in the kingdom's most prosperous time, the four emperors had to show some respect to the clan. Naturally, the clan would possess more resources than what they demonstrated in the battle today. They indeed possessed many trump card and skills, and the best one among them was the Immortal Army. However, this was a secret known only to a few Xia clansmen. How did Emperor Leng find out about it? Though still confused, Xia Tao was also desperate to overturn the current situation and thus, immediately agreed. Since Emperor Leng has personally made the request, then the Xia clan will stop hiding it. March the Immortal Army. Chapter 943 Immortal Army. Chapter 943 Immortal Army. Boom. A wormhole appeared in the middle of the battlefield and out walked many black-robed people. 100 of such men gathered behind Xia Tao. Each of them emanated a powerful aura and a fierce killing intent. They were all Dao Masters. Every single one of them was a Dao Master. This. Everyone on the battlefield was shocked. There was 100 Dao Masters in the Xia clan. No. These people resemble Dao Masters, but their aura is a bit strange, Lord of Circus Island muttered. The others noticed it as well. These people emanated a strange aura that typically came from a dying warrior. However, the life of an expert in the eternal realm of the eternal world was eternal. Unless killed, a Tao Master could live forever. However, the aura of these people was strong and deadly. Something wasn't right. This is the Xia clan's immortal army? There are as many as 100 people? Emperor Leng looked at the group of men in shock. She knew there was an immortal army in the clan, and she was also familiar with their origins. In the past, the clan obtained an incomparably cruel secret skill by chance. The secret skill allowed an expert at the top of Eternal Realm to open up a Tao in a short time and become a Tao Master. However, the cost was steep. They would be stagnant at rank 1 after becoming Tao Masters through the skill. It was the most common and even the weakest type of Tao Masters. Their life expectancy would also be greatly limited. Those who cultivated this secret skill could live for only 100,000 years. There was no cure for their limited lifespan. The Xia clan had been cultivating the immortal army ever since they discovered the skill. When a member of the army died, there would be a replacement immediately. After so many years, they had paid an unimaginable price to maintain the existence of their army. There had been countless people in the top level of the Eternal Realm alone who had sacrificed their lives for this. The immortal army is finally coming to play after we spend so many years building the army at a great cost. Xia Tao sneered. Then, a majestic and sturdy elderly man walked out the group of 100 black-robed figures and stood next to him. Is that Xia Ming? Xia Ming, the previous master of the Xia clan. Didn't the old dog die 1,000,000 years ago? How can he be alive now? Exclamations rose in the crowd when the elderly man appeared. The previous master of the Xia clan had been even more powerful than Xia Tao, perhaps even stronger than Emperor Xiao and Emperor Leng. How could he still be alive? The Xia clan indeed had its resources. Emperor Leng smirked. The Xia clan's trump card would have horrified her were she not in the same camp as them. Instead, it simply overjoyed her to have such formidable reinforcements. Let's get started. Xia Tao looked at the strong old man next to him. Xia Ming gave a small nod before waving his hand. March on, the immortal army. Boom. The 100 Tao Masters from the immortal army charged into the battlefield. Oh no. We're in trouble. Emperor Xiao, Emperor Yun, and the experts on the other camp were all shocked. Their side had the upper hand before the immortal army came into the battle. Now their opponents were much stronger and victory looked likely for them. Hurry up and think of a way to block them. These Tao Masters are just the most common and weakest of their ranks. Be careful and you'll still get a chance to kill them. Emperor Xiao continued to bellow in encouragement. No matter how he called out, it was a fact that their camp was greatly outnumbered now that the 100 Tao Masters of the immortal army had come into play. Emperor Xiao's camp was almost instantaneously crushed, with his Tao Masters falling one after another. One of the 10 war gods was already dead before the immortal army showed up, and now 3 more were killed. Even Di Jing had sustained severe injuries. Emperor Xiao, we can't hold on anymore. Bai Ming Hao, master of the Bai Ming clan, shouted. Emperor Xiao's face darkened. Do we have to run away like the last time? He clasped his hands, his heart twisting with agony. I don't want it. He didn't want to run away. On the other side. Jian Wushuang, Leng Rushuang paid no mind to the changes in the battlefield. She immediately ran to the sinkhole below after Gu Tong, the 7-star imperial god, appeared and stopped the soothsayer. She looked anxious. After all, she had seen with her own eyes how the soothsayer pierced through Jian Wushuang's chest with his sword. She finally found Jian Wushuang at the bottom of the sinkhole. He lied quietly on the ground, the bowl-sized cavity on his chest healing at an alarming rate. By the time she reached her, his wound had mostly healed. Jian Wushuang smiled at her and said, Don't worry. I'm fine. She heaved a sigh of relief when she saw that he was still alive. She didn't know that Jian Wushuang had made a breakthrough and reached the 3rd step in defiance of the natural order. Even if he wanted to die, the new realm would keep him alive forever. The soothsayer had pierced through his chest and shattered his heart, but the injuries would not kill him. Moreover, he had Gu King, the Plenilune centipede, in his body. Gu King had a powerful healing ability that rapidly mended his injuries. He was now almost fully recovered. The situation is very bad. Go and help Emperor Xiao. You don't have to worry about me, I'll recover in no time, Jian Wushuang said solemnly. Leng Rushuang looked at his nearly healed chest and made up her mind. She immediately left for the battlefield. He lied in the sinkhole, while his consciousness communicated with Gu King. Gu King, I remember you once said that in time of crisis, I can forcefully absorb King Luozhen's blood essence for a chance to live, Jian Wushuang said. What do you want to do? Gu King became obviously tense. You tell me. Jian Wushuang smiled. Chapter 944, Ancient God's Wrath and Plenilune's Roar. Chapter 944, Ancient God's Wrath and Plenilune's Roar. Don't be stupid, Jian Wushuang. Gu King said urgently, the essence blood in your body is something that King Luozhen left behind at great cost. It's very rare. If you take your time and slowly absorb it, you'll surely become a top expert. If you force it now, it can only temporarily improve your strength. It'll just be a waste, and once it erodes you, you'll suffer greatly. Besides, there's a chance that we can still turn the situation around. Those experts on your side may have some cards up their sleeves. In the worst-case scenario, you can just run and make a comeback again in the future. Make a comeback again in the future? Jian Wushuang shook his head with a smile. This battle started because of me. How can I hide during a crisis? Do you think I am a coward? He was determined to make use of the essence blood wrapped within his bloodline power. Suddenly, his bloodline power erupted and swallowed 10% of the essence blood. Jian Wushuang. Gu King, who resided inside him, shouted anxiously. He was relieved when he saw that Jian Wushuang had only swallowed 10% of the essence blood. Fortunately, it's only 10% of it. It was a pity that Jian Wushuang had wasted 10% of the essence blood, but fortunately, there was still 90% of it left. Jian Wushuang's bloodline power surged wildly after swallowing the essence blood. He stood up in the sinkhole and then slowly rose above while bathed in dark golden light. In the beginning, the light covered only his chest, but it soon enveloped his entire body. The shape of quadrangular stars began flashing between his eyebrows. The first star appeared, followed by the second and third. The last one was particularly dazzling. 3-star Ancient God. He had become a perfect ancient god of imperial kinsmen. Jian Wushuang lifted his head to reveal a pair of eyes that had completely turned dark golden. Lightning seemed to sparkle in his pupils in an arc. He looked at the battlefield where Emperor Xiao's men had retreated far into the distance while the opposing Dao masters frantically pursued them. This was especially true for the immortal army of the Xia clan. The army consisted of many people with the strength of a Dao master. The worst factor was that they were afraid of dying on the battlefield because they would not live long anyway. The situation was incredibly bad for Emperor Xiao's camp. Fortunately, the national master couldn't get away from King Gu Tong. Otherwise, Jian Wushuang looked at the battle far from him, where King Gu Tong was fiercely grappling with the soothsayer. Many people were watching, but none dared to step in. The two men were rather evenly matched. It seemed that their fight would last a long time before a victor would emerge. Jian Wushuang, let me out. The voice of Gu King rang in Jian Wushuang's head. I haven't been in a battle for a long time. When you're weak, I'm weak too. Now that you're at the top level of 3-star thanks to the blood essence, I'm also much stronger and can use my secret skills. Jian Wushuang gave a small nod and focused his mind to let Gu King out. Soon, a scarlet light glimmered from the mysterious scarlet crack in his arm and a large body appeared in the void. Gu King was covered in terrifying reddish-brown scales and equipped with numerous tentacles. He was so large that he seemed to fill up the space around him. However, due to Jian Wushuang's influence, Gu King's body was smaller compared to when he was in the Stellar Fog Sea. Back in the Stellar Fog Sea, the body of Gu King was so large that he could form a huge island. However, he was now only 100 feet long. Even so, he was still a terrifying sight due to his ferocious appearance and the horrible killing intent. His killing intent was incredibly potent. Jian Wushuang, work with me. Gu King's voice rang again. Jian Wushuang had skyrocketed to 10 feet high and his skin had turned dark golden. Standing on Gu King's massive head, he asked, How? You know how to use the 3 secret skills of ancient gods. Just exert the mind-controlling secret skill with all your strength, said Gu King. Got it? Jian Wushuang nodded solemnly. Ready? Gu King instructed. Go. Jian Wushuang's eyes glinted as he used the mind-controlling secret skill that he had already prepared. He used the skill at full strength, amplified by the ancient god power at the top level of 3-star as well as the divergent bloodstone. It felt as if thousands of sharp spikes pierced into his consciousness. Simultaneously, Gu King lifted his head. While Jian Wushuang was using his skill, there was also a violent aura surging from Gu King's body. Plenilune's secret skill, Roar. Frighteningly vicious currents swirled in the air. Gu King then opened his bloody mouth and took a deep breath before letting out an earth-shattering roar. The roar was so violent that everything between heaven and earth trembled. Hoot! The sharp and intense roar rocked everything in the world, even time and space. The sound waves caused ripples to form in the void in front of Gu King. These ripples rapidly expanded before finally shrouding the entire battlefield. On the battlefield, the experts from both camps were still engaged in a fierce battle. In fact, one side was obviously prevailing over the other. Under the leadership of the Immortal army, the camp of Emperor Leng and the Xia clan was madly chasing after the Dao masters of Emperor Xiao's camp, the casualties of which were heavy. Then the roar resounded. What? The Dao masters all turned toward the direction of which the roar came from. What's that? They all saw Gu King's massive body but could not recognize what it was. The roar resounded again and the waves of ripples also subsequently spread. The ripples contained the horrible sound wave attack formed by the secret skills that Plenilune centipede, Gu King used. They also carried the consciousness attack formed by the mind-controlling secret skills that Jianghu used. The perfect match between the two had created this fearsome attack. This was the Plenilune's roar as well as the ancient god's wrath. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.